Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast.
They all look a little bit gutless. You're not got anything with any power to it.
Oh.
Gutless.
How many laps did you do?
Not so many.
One more than we did, that's for sure. This week, we're going to be talking about the Dawn to Dusk race. And we've got three chaps that entered the race. We've got Jack Kemp, we've got Rory Othen, son of Simon, BikerEdd Harris, who's joined us this week. And they all did the 24-hour version of the race, and they're going to tell us a little bit more about how they got on and all that kind of stuff in a minute. Before we do that, let's tell people what the actual Dawn to Dusk race is. I guess there's a clue in the title.
Dawn to Dusk started about 20 years ago. I think it started in 2002. It was a 24-hour race started by Nick Plum, a multiple Dakar finisher at Walters Arena, which a lot of people will know from the BMW World of Off-Road. It's their school facility. It's absolutely massive down in Swansea. A lot of forest, a lot of uphill, downhill, a lot of rain on our weekend. It's essentially a 24-hour enduro. You can either do 3-man team, 2-man team, or a solo. And there's classes within that as well for different skill levels. And now there's different bike classes, like the big bike, small bike, men and women as well.
I'm going to ask each of the guys to introduce themselves. Jack, do you want to go first? Tell us who you are, probably a little bit about where you work as well.
I am Jack Kemp. I live and work mostly in North Wales up at Motor Junkies predominantly as a trail guide and off-road instructor. Got into trail riding and off-road riding about 4 years ago, and getting into competition and enduro and such is a more recent thing for me. The Dawn to Dusk was my second official enduro.
Just tell us a little bit more for people that haven't listened to the episode with Steph from 2 years ago. What sort of thing can you do at Moto Junkies?
Primarily, we offer off-road training and trail guiding for motorcycling, but more recently have gotten into doing road skills training. We've got a couple of ex-police riders on our roster that offer road skills training, as well as foreign tours now, both road and off-road. So in the Pyrenees, Portugal, we're moving sort of slightly further afield. Going forward into the next couple of years, I'm not sure how much I can say about that yet. So, yeah.
What do you do specifically?
I predominantly operate as a trail guide and off-road instructor on the smaller bike side of the spectrum, so trail bike and dual sports, but also a little bit of a jack of all trades. So some groundsman work, some admin, some mechanicking, sales, all sorts really.
So we've had BikerEdd, Ed Harris on before, and we've had Rory on before, but quick intros, guys, for the people that haven't listened to you before.
Yeah, my name's Ed. I've been on a podcast before. I think it was one about racing and getting into racing, and that's kind of where my background in motorcycling started. So I did enduro racing in my younger years and kind of only at a grassroots level, and sort of got into adventure biking in the last couple of years. I kind of do more of the big bike stuff now than the little bikes, to be honest.
So Rory, since you were last on, you've become one of the biggest celebrities we've ever had on the TAMP podcast. Do you want to reintroduce yourself?
Rory Othen, son of Simon, racer apparently, so happy with that term. A-star celebrity, so
sponsored rider now.
Sponsored rider.
Oh mate, I was so proud of you with that stickered bike. Awesome. You've won a TAMP podcast prize as well. I got you a Team Yaris shirt ordered as well.
Amazing. It was all worth it then.
24 hours for a fucking free t-shirt. Maybe not.
So was this the first race that all of you have done?
First 24-hour.
Yeah. It was really the first race that I'd ever done, and I think second enduro Jack's ever done.
I was going to say, for you, Rory, it's the second enduro anything really you've ever done, including practice days and races.
Yeah, jump in at the deep end. And genuinely, I think it was actually a really good place to start, because there's not many other places where you could actually go and essentially test your skills for 24 hours. So if you are thinking about getting into it, it's actually a really good way to get into it.
I'm not sure I follow your logic for that.
Seems like terrible advice to me. A little bit more about the Dawn to Dusk then. So it's held at Walters Arena, which I think Rory mentioned earlier is the same place as the BMW Off-Road School. It used to be an open cast coal mine, and Walters Arena spreads over something like 4,000 acres. It is 23 miles northeast of Swansea, so it's down in South Wales. And the Dawn to Dusk race, you've got several options to enter. You've got the 24-hour race, you've got a 12-hour race, you've got a 10-hour night race, or a 6-hour race. And then within those classifications, or within those time limits, you've got different groupings. So you've got the marathon expert, clubman, vet, which is 40 plus. That seems very young to be a veteran. A sportsman, ladies, with the 24-hour race, you can do a 2-rider, a 3-rider, or a big bike race as well. And I think those classifications split into several of the timescales as well. So guys, tell us, let's start with Ed. Which class were you riding in?
Although I was on an 1190, I was actually in the 3-man 24-hour team. So that was with all the enduro bikes as well. If you want to be in the big bike class, you have to do it solo. That's the only class they currently offer. So we were actually in with all the little bikes as well. But yeah, I wasn't brave enough to enter it solo. So I went in as a 3-man team on one guy on an 890, one on a 990, and another, me on my 1190.
So you don't have to ride the same bike then? You can all ride your own bike?
No, you ride your own bikes. And in fact, usually, I think if people are doing, if you actually want to be competitive and you're doing a solo 24 hours, generally you bring 2, maybe even 3 bikes, so that if you have a problem, you can just throw it back into the pits, jump on your other bike and go, and leave someone in the pits to try and sort out. Because if you're racing for 24 hours, you're going to have a problem of some sort. Something's, likely to break. So if you're really serious about getting a good position, then you need to bring more than one bike, I would say.
Did anything break for you, Ed?
No, I struggle a lot with the bike overheating at the minute because I've had to stick a high mudguard on. Because with the low mudguard on the adventure bikes, they pack up with mud and then jam. But because I've put a high mudguard on, now the radiator packs up with mud. And being a 1000cc plus engine going at slow speed, I am having some issues where it starts to overheat. So I did have to stop every lap and get one of the guys to try and pressure wash through the radiator to clear out some of that mud. But other than that, just a few scratches, bangs, and bend the exhaust in, and just usual big bike stuff.
What about tyres? Did you change a tyre?
Yeah, so I kind of started the first few laps on some sort of part worn, maybe a bit more trail friendly tyres, and quickly kind of realised this was going to get more difficult rather than easier. So I got my pit crew, which was nice because usually I'd have to do this on my own. We had John came along as a friend of ours to act as pit crew, and I got him to stick on a much more aggressive rear tyre, which did help a lot.
So presumably while you're changing that tyre, one of the other guys went out and carried on?
Yeah. So that's the nice thing you can do in a team of 3, sort of. When you're getting, rest or spannering done on the bike, you've kind of got, you're only out one in 3.
Team of 3 seems like a sensible approach, only 8 hours each.
I thought that at the time, but I'm not sure it was that sensible by the end, to be honest.
We'll come on to that and see how you did a bit later on. So, Rory, which classification were you riding in?
I was in the solo 24 sportsman class, so the sort of novice entry class.
And how many people were in the sportsman class?
I think it was 30.
And how many people are in the race altogether, do we know?
800 this year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what kind of bike were you on?
I was on a Beta 300 RR 2-stroke.
And somebody lent you that bike, didn't they?
They did.
Have you had that conversation with Ed yet?
me and poor old Ed Seath have had the debrief. But he said, quote, "I knew what I was getting myself into." So I think we're all good. We're still friends.
It was Mr. Seat's bike?
No, Ed Seath, ADV Ed, a very, very good friend of ours.
He must be a very good friend.
And how many hours did the bike have on it?
When he gave it to me, it had 21.
It had 21 hours on it.
Yeah, it doubled by the time we finished.
Wow, that's very generous, Ed. Well done.
Did anything break for you, Rory?
I hit a tree pretty hard, so
A few hearts on the way around, probably.
Yeah. Bars were pretty bent, but John got straight straightened it up pretty quick. And then on my last lap, I looped the bike out on a hill climb and broke some rear fairing, which has all been ordered and paid for, so all covered.
Jack, which class were you riding under?
So I was in the same as Rory, the 24-hour solo sportsman class. In theory, because I was on a 701, which should fall into the big bike single class, I would have been in that. But because there was no one else in that class, they said, we can't run it just for you. So tough, you'll have to go in with all the lightweight enduro bikes.
Oh, really? No other big bikes turned up?
You still came really high, though.
There were some other big bike twins, but they won't chuck you in with those, like the adventure bikes. There's a couple of Teneres and 950, 990-esque bikes, but they won't naturally put me in with that because that would be to be fair, an unfair advantage being on a lighter machine, so they give you the disadvantage instead.
A midweight bike, isn't it? It's sort of somewhere in the middle. It's not quite a big bike, not quite a little bike.
Yeah, midweight wanker.
I'll do you a t-shirt, mate.
So what's the level of difficulty? Is it logs and rocks and all that kind of stuff?
Everyone's doing the same track. What was a rally car place. It was using like the RAC rally and stuff. So there's a lot of long open straights, but then within those long open straights, there's uphills of like connecting routes and forests, like single track, maybe just wide enough for two bikes. A lot of rocky climbs, slippy climbs. What was a nice smooth track, after 800 bikes gone around it, rocks just grew out the ground. So obstacles would appear every lap. It was pretty tough.
I'd say for an enduro, it's probably a medium for an enduro. I would say it's not. I mean, Walters also runs the Valleys Extreme, and the Valleys Extreme is, as you might guess by the name, much more extreme. And they did add some, I think they had something like 14 or so extreme route options you could take, which supposedly saved you 30 seconds, 50 seconds, so on. But to be honest, I think if there was even a chance of you getting stuck on them, it probably wasn't worth taking them. I'd say probably a medium difficulty enduro, but if you intend to go on a big or even a medium bike, I don't know, maybe whatever Jack thinks, but it was sort of at the top end of difficulty that I'd done on a bigger bike.
Yeah, definitely the as Rory says, so the technical sections between the faster going fire tracks, and even those weren't really smooth fire tracks. They're still sort of rough in comparison to a lot of fire tracks out there. That really is designed for lightweight enduro bikes. Certainly doable on big bikes, but the effort that you're putting in is significant.
Did anyone get a chance to look down at their clocks and see what speed they were doing on the fastest bit?
I've redlined the bike in fifth once.
Shh, Ed's listening, don't tell him.
Were you moving anywhere, or was this just stationary?
I stopped to help Ed. Ed is somewhat of a hero of mine in the off-road world. All he said was, "You're doing well," which filled me with far too much confidence. Far too much confidence. And the next bit was a wide open straight, so I think I topped out about 62.
Is this just before or just after you'd called him a wanker, which is on video, I believe?
Just after that, yeah.
Can we just clarify, who got to the hill? Who got to the top of that hill first, Rory?
You did. You got the overnight to the top of it first.
And then what happened when I got to the top of the hill?
You offered to take my bike up for me, and I thought, I'm not turning that down.
It was actually quite a joy to get on an enduro bike and be like, wow, this weighs absolutely nothing. If you jump straight off a big bike onto an enduro bike, you just end up like nearly throwing the thing off a cliff because it just weighs nothing.
So presumably this was harder than it normally is because of the conditions. It was wet, it got incredibly muddy, incredibly chewed up. So I'm assuming this was a more difficult year than usually is.
From what I heard from various other riders and marshals and stuff, this was the first year in quite a while that they'd had rain. The last 5 or 6 years have been so dry that the biggest issue was dust and seeing other riders rather than, the difficulty of the course. But the rain leading up to it and throughout the event, as well as the sheer number of riders that they had enter this year, just turned the course into a complete wreck. And the deterioration was crazy. I mean, Rory said earlier that rocks grow out the ground, and that was what Nick Plum said coming into the event at the briefing, is that if you haven't been here before, rocks grow out the ground at Walters Arena, and he was right. What was nothing at the start of the event was 6 inches tall and wanted to kill you by the end of it. The deterioration was something else.
Do any of you feel that you really underestimated what it would take to do it?
I think I knew it was going to be quite difficult getting into it, but it kind of touches onto a bit of an interesting point there. If you want to give it a go and you want to try like a nice easy one to dip your toes into it, if you think doing the 6 hours is going to be a easy one, remember you're going on the last 6 hours of the race, so the track is in the worst condition it's been for the whole 24 hours. You also go straight onto the day lap, which is different to the night lap. The night lap is easier to do. The day lap is much longer and much more difficult, and you're also going up against all the boys which are used to doing enduro sprints. So I think the 6 hour was probably one of the more brutal classes to actually be in. So if you want to try it and you're not sort of so confident, probably the 12 hour or the 24 is actually a better one to get into than the 6 hour.
Again, sounds like really terrible advice.
There's a lot of expectation that goes with the 6 hour as well.
It's much more similar to like a sprint format, like your usual kind of 4 hour, 3 hour long enduro.
So you've definitely got people coming into the 6 hour race that are absolutely giving it their all then, because, racing hard for 6 hours is one thing, but for 24 hours or 12, unless you're an absolute god of endurance, it's just difficult to keep it going for that long. For 6 hours, you can push hard for. So that's what most people are aiming for that enter that.
The thing is with the 24 hours, it's that sleep deprivation thing. You start hallucinating, and to me, that's probably the hardest thing about it is not actually getting any rest. Did you actually take any rest in the 24 hours?
I did, yeah. I found after probably about 4 or 5 hours, even though the sleep, to be honest, at that point, the sleep deprivation wasn't necessarily an issue, but the physical exhaustion was. So decided to just combine that with a sleep. And I had probably an hour and a half sleep, something like that at that point, just to recoup. Because I thought if my body's needs time to recoup, I might as well sleep as well.
Did you find it easy to get to sleep?
I started my van up, turned the heating on, and sat back in a recliner deck chair in the kit. And the answer was yes, pretty quickly.
What about you, Ed?
I got a bit of sleep, yeah. I think we kind of all went to bed at about 4 or 5 in the morning. And I think I'd left it, got off about sort of 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock-ish. So I got a fairly decent sleep, to be honest, all things considering. I think by the time we went to bed, one of the bikes had broken down and the other guy had sort of injured his ribs. So I think we knew, and obviously being in the enduro bike class, we knew it wasn't going to be super competitive. So I think we went for the option of getting a good kip and then giving the day lap a good go in the morning.
No, hang on a minute. I didn't think going to bed was part of this event.
Being a proper big bike wanker, I went for the enjoyable 5-star experience.
Do you think everybody had a little nap during the race, or are some people just really just grin and bear it and keep going?
Rory only got about an hour and a half.
Some people definitely grin and bear it. Those that are really competitively.
Yeah, I never planned to sleep, but about 5 a.m. I was in the forest and knocked the light off my helmet. It was really hard to ride in the dark without it, and I crashed several times because you just can't see around corners, and I just kept crashing. So I managed to limp back to the pits, and then I said to the boys that we'll try and fix it. And stupidly, I sat down, just went to sleep. it was never the plan, and then woke up about 10 minutes later and then chatted to Chris, one of our friends. He said we can't really get it back on the light. The sun's going to be up in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So just get some rest. So I just lied down on a roll mat on the floor with all my kit on, fell asleep for 40 minutes.
Was it easy to get going after the nap?
Because I purposely left all my kit on because I knew I wouldn't want to put it back on after. Wash my face with a bit of cold water, had some isotonic drinks, bit of pasta, bit of food, bit of gummy bears and stuff, and was ready to go. And then managed to get a lap in before the day lap opened as well, so I was pretty happy with that.
Jack, you made the race a little bit harder for yourself by wearing...
You had some weird safety equipment.
Were you worried about drowning?
The weather forecast wasn't great, and knowing that how well the valleys can fill up with water, this time of year, peak Welsh summer. Yes, so for the first 5 laps, I think it was, I was wearing an inflatable pink flamingo, and I mean a big one. There are photos out there of it quite a few places now. It was part of a charity fundraiser that I was doing and was the target for £1,000, which I didn't necessarily think I'd reach, but obviously did. So wore it for as long as it survived.
People can still contribute, I'm guessing.
If you head over to one of my social media pages, there will be a link there to the Just Giving cause for cancer research. So at the moment we're sitting at about £1,600. I'd love to reach $2,000 if that's feasible.
What's your name on the social media?
On Instagram and Facebook, I am ADV Jack.
Did it hinder you at all, Jack, or did it help?
It was an absolute nightmare. There are videos of me going around the arena, the quarry, which is sort of right at the start of the lap, and the steering lock wearing a flamingo that of a diameter of about 5 foot is a little bit limited. That and it falling down and stopping you from able to get your ass back on descents and stuff is a nightmare. I was pretty glad when it had decided to melt on my exhaust and pop.
It wasn't a tiny little kid's thing, was it? It was a tractor in a tube. It looked huge.
Yeah, full-size adult thing.
I can't believe that's what did it. The exhaust was what punctured it in the end. I assumed it would be a tree or a crash or something like that. I'm
pretty sure it's the exhaust, which is absolutely staggering considering I managed to accidentally pop it when I was blowing it up for the first time. So the fact it didn't puncture on a tree or something is absolutely amazing to me.
Did anybody actually do any specific preparation for this race, like fitness training or, forced awakeness?
I'd say we almost did the exact opposite. Like the night before, we were still changing wheel bearings in bikes, and you kind of really sort of basic preemptive maintenance. We were sort of doing that a few hours before we were meant to be going. So no.
Exactly
Like-
the same here.
For us guys, it's like festival season, so it's just like drinking every weekend and staying up really late, like. But
What?
for people that do enduros, it's probably not.
I was gonna say, what do you mean for us guys? We're not all 12 years old, Rory.
Was there ever a moment of regret where you thought, "Oh, I really wish I hadn't done this"?
No.
No.
I didn't have a moment of regret, but there was a moment of, I don't think I can do this. Probably, again, about sort of like 5 hours in, where, we're halfway through the night. At that point, I'm pretty physically exhausted, and I'm just thinking how much more there is to go. And I've done 24-hour events before, nothing enduro related. So I knew that the tiredness thing couldn't necessarily be an issue, but at that point, I was just thinking, I can't do this.
Because the name Dawn to Dusk is a bit of a misnomer, isn't it? Because it's actually dusk to dusk, really. You start at 7 o'clock in the evening and you finish at 7 o'clock the following evening.
Yeah.
So you're almost, after a couple of hours, it starts getting dark, right?
I think that's how it started, wasn't it? I think originally it was dawn till dusk. And then I'm sure Rory knows the history of how it all started. And has it always been 24 hours?
I think it's always been 24 hours, I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
it's a shit name then, isn't it?
I think it's a good name. Stop being pedantic.
So, Ed, we're used to you telling us about your race entries, and you normally win everything. So I'm assuming you won the marathon class.
No, not even close. Not even close.
Your bike was bigger and faster than everybody else's, right?
Bigger and faster and more powerful. I dug bigger holes out there than anyone else could possibly have imagined. Because we were in with all the little bikes. And to be honest, even if we were in with the big bikes, the kind of terrain we were riding was really on the limit for something like an 1190. Something like a 701 or a 690 is still really a big ask, but a lot more suitable for it. And when you're kind of asking, were there any points where anyone sort of thought, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this? Not in terms of being tired or carrying on, but there were some parts on the day lap where I just thought, I'm not going to get this bike any further up this hill until someone comes along with a quad bike or a helicopter or something to just take it out of there.
I can't even be asked to do the big bike versus little bike thing, but presumably if you'd been on the little bike, it wouldn't have been so difficult.
I've got a little bike sat at home in the garage, and there were a few points where I thought, why have I brought the 1190 for this when I could be on a nice little enduro bike?
How wet did you actually get?
It didn't rain that bad, to be honest. Like it was raining quite a lot, sort of either side of the race. But for the main race, like it stayed mostly dry.
It sort of spritzed a little bit in the night, but it was, to be fair, quite refreshing.
But it was still fairly warm, right? It was like 10 degrees all through the night. So there were no points where you're kind of freezing cold.
I'm not a very efficient rider, so I was putting so much energy into it. I was never cold. I'm sure some of the guys that were really sort of efficient and really good riders you could see they had body warmers on and stuff during the night loops because they weren't using enough energy.
Afterwards, so you go home, how long do you sleep for afterwards when you get back?
So a lot of people stay till the Monday, so they sleep on site that night, and then no one's driving home delusional. It does happen. I got home on the Monday evening and went to bed about 6.
I think I came and woke you up sort of about 10 in the morning on the Monday it would have been.
Were you surprised how good you felt afterwards, or did it really shatter you?
Mentally, I was fine, but it was just obviously the physical things that I'd actually hurt myself during the race, and like the cramp got really bad for me personally, but that's just lack of prep. My hands were in quite a lot of pain and weren't very much use. I was just very weak. I'm excited for next year to be able to be a bit better, Hey,
a great tip for cramp, Barocca. It's got potassium in. Apparently that stops cramp. Yeah,
wow.
I always carry some with me when I'm on a bike trip because I get really bad cramp in my legs and my feet, and Barocca stops it completely.
The evening before the race, I remember you were just like cooking batches of pasta. I was like, what are you doing, Rory? Why, like, you're not going to eat all of that pasta?
I ate a lot of it. Said hello to it halfway around the loop as well. So
I offered catering support, Rory. I don't think you believed me, did you, when I said I was willing to come down and make you tea and coffee and feed you?
He did believe you. He just chose not to take you up on the kind offer of the awful food that you would have provided.
we've got a whole year to plan it now, Noel.
Surely you'll
Right.
both be entering next year, Clive and Noel.
Will we? Fuck. You stupid idiots. We're not doing that.
Perfect way to dip your toes into the world of enduro racing.
No, they're gonna land the TAMP helicopter in with the sponsorship money.
I accidentally did do a 24-hour enduro by mistake a few years ago. So I'd entered a 2-day rally in Wales, and I'd finished the first day. I was in the pub about 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, I got a phone call from my sister-in-law saying your youngest son, who was a baby at the time, has been taken into hospital because he's had a seizure. Rachel's in the hospital with him, and obviously I had to pack up and go home. So I basically got up at 3 o'clock that morning to get down to Wales on time to do my 8 hours of riding or whatever it was. First pint, had to then go and pack up the bike, drive home, and I think I got back home about 3 o'clock in the morning as well. So I'd actually been away, and I was actually hallucinating on the motorway on the way back. It was like the motorway was rising up and down as I was driving along it.
So elephants crossing.
I could have fucking stayed. It was fine.
And what happened when you were in Harris? Didn't somebody fall off a building or something? One of your kids?
Same kid, yeah.
Same kid?
Broke his wrist. Fucking
Oh,
swat.
God.
Ruined my life. I keep telling people this. Don't have kids, whatever you do.
I only had a small bit of hallucinogenic stuff. Due to sleep deprivation, I kept seeing Where's Wally books. I kept seeing the wizard out of Where's Wally. Just in the trees.
That's amazing.
I don't know where it's come from. I haven't seen that.
No, he was actually there.
Oh.
That was Ed just fucking with you in fancy dress.
If you eat too much pasta, you start seeing the wizard from Where's Wally.
Somebody probably saw a pink flamingo riding around as well.
Passing people with that thing on, thinking, what the fuck are they thinking right now?
Well, what they're actually thinking is, why is some bastard with a pink flamingo on going faster than me?
On a 701.
Are there any particularly unusual or rare bikes taking part that you spotted?
There was a Tenere World
exotic.
Raid that was absolutely smashing it. He was doing amazing. And I think he was doing the 24 as well, but he was just doing an absolutely brilliant job. And the World Raid's a big old beast.
It's Paul Torres in disguise as the wizard from Where's Wally.
I think I saw a couple of old Kawasaki trail bikes. It's sort of you either go pure enduro or you're sort of messing around on the, the mid-weight or big weight bikes. I'm not sure there were too many sort of old school things there.
Personally, I had like waves of highs and lows. Like the first sort of 2 hours for me was really bad. Because like any time where I'd like mess something up or get a tiny bit tired, I'm like, Jesus, what have I got myself into?
Well, you binned it on the first lap, didn't you? Because we were stood waiting for you to come round, and we were saying he's been quite a while, so either he's taking it really carefully or he's binned it into a tree or something.
Yeah,
and my
exactly
friend said, "Well, it's Rory, isn't it? So which one do you think it's going to be?"
I did sort of push it a bit too hard on the first few like hour or so, and then. But like I was like, Jesus, what have I got myself into? And then after every hour, you're like, hang on, this is going to get all right. It's going to get all right. And then it got to 12 hours and you're like, I'm only halfway. So my emotion just shot back down again. And then it gets better and better and better. And then like the last few laps, I was loving it. I was like fresh to go until I stopped. As soon as I stopped, I was just done. I think, Clive, you posted a video today of that. That was me just coming off my final lap.
But your pictures, it was like a zombie on a bike. You were absolutely mashed.
He looked like the bloke that looks a little bit like Rory, didn't he, in a lot of those pictures?
The undead Rory, covered in grey coal dust.
There was like the odd picture where I'd have a good lap and I'd come in and I felt great. Like I think Ed's got a picture from like midnight. I felt great after that lap.
I've got a video of us having to pressure wash you when you came back in at the end of the race.
Did you spot any sort of older, say, distinguished gentlemen with slightly greying beards taking part? Really a young man's game?
I did, but they were all really good.
Oh.
Probably, heroes of years gone by and many, many, many races done.
I think we'd say probably really old, like in their late mid-40s kind of thing.
Proper veterans. There'll be 2 more next year.
No, there won't. So listen, I know the results haven't been announced yet, but how did you all get on?
Reasonably okay in the end, actually. I was a little bit disappointed in the first sort of few hours. I thought, I'm doing absolutely awful here. But I think I got 19 laps in the end, which put me in 10th or 9th, no, I don't know, 8th, 9th, roughly, out of 30 in my sportsman class, which I was pretty happy with.
Yeah.
I think sort of in the 24-hour solo overall, I came about 32nd-ish out of, I don't know how many riders, roughly 80. So
that's amazing.
In the grand scheme of things, pretty happy. Yeah.
That's really good on probably a bike that wasn't the most suitable there. That's for sure. Well done. Rory, what do you reckon?
I think my final standing was 16th out of 30, and then I actually don't know how many laps I've done. I haven't checked. Jack, that is amazing, Jack. That is really good.
Considering it was your first enduro, though, I mean, you got 14. I did check. You got 14 laps in, and which is pretty staggering considering you haven't done anything like that before.
Absolutely take that.
Was there ever a moment where you thought, I reckon I could win?
No.
when Neil Hawker came past me with his thumbs up, I was just thinking there are a lot of really, really good people here.
Well, that's the best people to surround yourself with, isn't it?
Craig Seals would always give me a good cheer every time I went past, and I think he gave me a pat on the back as well whilst riding along. So
Craig Searles, who is one of the Searles to Dakar guys, actually won the 12-hour class, didn't he? I think
he did. Yeah. The 10-hour night race. Yeah.
Ed, I'm presuming you did really shit.
I had lots of fun, and that's the most important thing, Clive.
Everyone's a winner.
I got my participation trophy, and that's all that I really needed.
Did you get something to colour in afterwards as well? You're brilliant.
No, unfortunately not. I would have quite enjoyed that.
But one last question. Are all the bikes cleaned and nicely put away?
Yes.
Or is somebody yet to wash their bike?
Rory, I have a question about this because I don't think you cleaned your bike. Is your bike back with... Oh, no, because your bike went in the van with Chris. So your bike literally... You got off it, someone cleaned it, it went into someone else's van, and then you haven't seen it since.
On.
Sponsored rider.
I got off it. Whitey went and cleaned it, and then it was taken away back to the factory for analysation.
Those are the standards we expect for TAMP podcast sponsored riders, you see.
Those stickers were structural by the end of the race. Like, if it wasn't for those TAMP podcast stickers, the whole bike would have just fallen apart.
No word of a lie, it held on the cover for the air filter.
Quality stickers. That was a very enjoyable time talking to the guys about the Dawn to Dusk race. Massive thanks to the three of them for doing that, and a massive thanks to Nick Plum for organising the event for, I think that's the 20th anniversary of the race this year. We need more people like him putting events on for us all to enjoy. Huge kudos. I've just seen some really good news as well. It's Saturday afternoon now for people that follow our good friend Brett Anderson. Brett has just had a successful lung transplant. He's in recovery, but the patient is doing well. So we're sending lots of love and good vibes to him across the channel to Chicago. Get well soon, Brett. We're thinking of you, mate. And, of course, Carrie as well. See you later. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.